destination, a one-way ticket.
Welcome to the Softland Central podcast, your home for market entry knowledge and resources. Softland Central is brought to you by Softland Partners, an online marketplace to help you find best fit resources for your market entry. Find them at softlandpartners.com. Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Softland Central. And today we're going to talk about U.S. immigration, which is obviously a massive topic for companies coming into the U.S. And it's a dynamic field. And today we're really excited because we've got the Immigration Dream Team with us. And let me just tell you who's on and say hi to each of them. So we have Sophie Alcorn from Alcorn Law. Welcome, Sophie.
Hi, Bill. Great to be here with everybody today. Thank you.
It's great to see you. And Tahmina Watson from Watson Immigration. Hi, Tahmina.
Hi, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And Jonathan Grode from Green and Spiegel. Welcome, Jonathan.
Ahoy, mon capitan.
Brilliant. Well, we'll start with you, Sophie, and we'll spin around and kind of go first with each person. But Sophie, you want to kind of give us a state of your thoughts about the state of immigration in the U.S. today? What are kind of some of the highlights of changes that have happened over the last 12 months or so?
Thank you, Bill. I think the biggest change from 12 months ago, from my perspective, is that immigration is happening now, which is really, really exciting for U.S. companies that need to secure key talent from abroad, or with the Great Resignation, people that are shifting companies within the United States, or people who want to come to the United States to start businesses or branches of existing businesses for the first time. Visas are being issued. The country has a permeable membrane, so people can get in with the right immigration support, like from my colleagues here on the call today. So if anything, I would say there's a shift towards hopefulness and possibility that economic activity is happening. There are ways for people to come to the United States. Some are still challenging, like it could be hard to get an appointment for a visa, but on the other hand, many consulates are waiving visa interviews. So we are seeing a lot more motion and a lot more willingness for people to pick up immigration, especially from other countries coming to the US for the first time, and not just amendments, extensions, and transfers within the United States.
That's fantastic. And Tahmina, your thoughts on the topic in terms of, sort of what are the kind of big things are changing? What's the state of immigration today?
You know, the biggest thing that I think is worth mentioning is that this administration is trying, because they're coming out of an impossible situation, and everything was essentially closed, or getting denied or getting requested, or every type of visa. This particular administration is trying to come out of the backlog. The backlogs are what's been really hurting our clients wherever they are in the world, whether they're in the US or outside the US. So the measures that are being taken for inside the US, where green cards are being given out without interviews to employment-based applicants, that's huge. They're trying to get through that. So in my opinion, this administration's trying to come out of it, and that gives me hope.
Oh, that's great. And Jonathan, how about you? Again, thinking about companies that are coming in, what are changes that you're seeing that are favorable for those companies?
I think my glass is a little less half full than my colleagues. I do think adjudications are better. I think this administration has pulled back a lot of the Trump era stuff that made obtaining visas hard. So I think the law is friendlier. I think the logistics still suck. Just to be straight with you, Sophie's right. Like, they've made some provisions where you can do some mail-ins and things like that, but not every visa classification allows for mail-in. And if we're looking about founders and startups, and we're talking about e-visas in particular, which is like that investment-based one, they're not waiving those interviews. So I think logistically, it's problematic. I will agree with Tahmina that we should applaud the administration for trying. But the reality is they just got the funding to start enhancing consular officer staff after a hiring freeze for a long time at the Department of State. That's after mass resignations from the Trump administration and mass resignations during the pandemic for fear of personal safety. There's a dearth. So yes, I agree. But like, for example, if you wanted to book an appointment for a routine visa and work visa in Toronto, which is a popular place for third country nationals before they go back to India or other parts of the world, earliest appointment you're going to get is July 2023. So as I tell my clients and colleagues, I'm like, we're winning on the law, but the travel agent part of the job is still a challenge. And that's kind of my take. But yeah, I mean, if I'm putting a positive, it's trending in the right direction. I will give everybody that. I will say it is getting better, maybe not as quickly as we would like or hope.
Yep. No, that I totally heard. So with the, I guess as you look at the glass being a little less full, and I'll go to Jonathan with this next question is, what are your expectations going ahead? If you look, crystal ball for the next 6 or 12 months, what do you see on the horizon?
Well, I think the most disappointing thing is the legislative front, especially when we're talking to the population that engages, with soft landing or expansion of businesses. There was a bill that passed the Senate in 2020 and a corresponding bill or 2021, and there was a corresponding one that passed through the House this past spring, which was going to actually create like an entrepreneurial visa. Like, we don't have a startup visa classification for the United States. Almost every other country in the world does. Western countries, like our neighbors to the north or Europe and stuff like that. We do not. So there was this bill in the House that said, we're going to create a brand new visa classification. Actually had some bipartisan support in the Senate, less so in the House of Representatives. It's going nowhere, like nowhere. And I don't think it's going to go anywhere before the midterm elections. And depending on what happens with the midterm elections, I don't know if we're going to get this common sense. We're not even talking about immigration reform. We're just talking about common sense adjustments to modernize the system so that it reflects what's currently going on with growth and development of international businesses and leveraging the United States market. I think it's patently unfair that only certain countries in the world have access to be able to start a company in a regular mechanism using that visa E2 that we've talked about before on these podcasts, or the E1 for trade. It's not available to everybody. There is a definitive need for a ubiquitous visa classification that supports entrepreneurship. And if you want to talk about disappointments, to me, that is the most fundamental one out there. So I get there's other priorities. Look, I'm not saying it's easy on a particular administration. Certainly events that happen in Texas recently, and we had another one in Oklahoma State. I mean, these are things that require immediate attention. But when you have both chambers saying, let's do this, and it gets nowhere because they refuse to do a reconciliation, I find that frustrating.
Sure. Understood. Yeah. So you see probably more of the same, it sounds like, for the next 6-12 months. Tahmina, what are your thoughts?
I agree with John, and what I will say is that I try to be practical, and I am giving up hope on legislation, because if we haven't seen it in the last 2 years, I just don't see how we are going to get legislative fixes in the next 2 years. And the midterm will be telling on that, but even if we come out with a similar structure, it will still be difficult. So me as an advocate, not just a lawyer, but an advocate for change, I sit down and think, how can I advocate for the change that I can actually see? Because I'm giving up on legislation. What are the things we can do? So last week I wrote an article about the potential of the E2 visa. The E2 visa could actually be expanded upon so that all our entrepreneur clients from anywhere in the country world could come here. But that willingness to change that small thing in a particular category, it's not happening. But maybe it could if we pushed in that direction. So I think the E2 visa is a potentially very impactful visa, more than it is now, if only the people that could understand it could make those changes. So I'm thinking that we focus on regulations and policy changes, logistical problems that John just described, because the USCIS just got a boatload of money. What are they going to do with it? So we need to be looking at them for accountability. So I want to focus my energy on the things that can actually happen, as opposed to the advocacy that's not leading anywhere. But the startup visa, I mean, you all know I've been advocating for it for like, I don't know, 2008, 9. I'm like really tired of, why do I need to keep banging my head on the wall? This is just such a no-brainer. But if the people who can make those changes are not going to hear that or listen to it, then I've got to go and find the regulations that can be changed by the administration.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing about the E2, Tamina, not to like, but it's a treaty-based visa. You have to have treaties with all of the countries in order for it to be activated. That's why this new visa classification that this bill talks about, it's actually called the W visa. That's why it is impactful, because it will achieve it through legislation. But Tamina's right in that we can't rely on Congress. What can the administration do? Is that through executive orders? Is that through a change in regulation? I don't know if that E2 play would be the right one, but there is also this like an executive order based entrepreneurial status that Obama had put in place. Trump canceled it. It's called Entrepreneur in Residence. Biden brings it back. I don't know if you guys have tried any of these cases, but I have not even anecdotally heard any of those getting approved. So like putting some muscle behind that program could be helpful. I don't know, Sophie, have you been able to activate the Entrepreneur in Residence status?
Thank you. Yeah, so a couple things. I think that in general, over the next 6 months, as you both alluded to, we're going to see this improvement in adjudication trends and speeding up of timelines. More premium processing will be available for more case types, so that can be really valuable to people's green card processes and spousal work permits. We've seen an improvement in those. So and with the staffing at the consulates, the restaffing that you mentioned, Jonathan, I think that's going to help a lot. So I'm still telling companies that want a soft land in the United States, look, where there's a will, there's a way. There's a variety of existing visa types. If you don't qualify now, let's set you up so you can qualify. So it might take a little bit of effort to shoehorn into one of these obscure categories, but the categories exist if you can meet them. The international entrepreneur parole, I did file several cases last year. They are now finally at the stage of having a request for evidence. And this is at least some forward movement for entrepreneurs who have a funded startup, say raised at least $265,000 from qualified US investors. It's best for people who don't already qualify for an O1 visa for extraordinary ability, or who are not already in the US on an H1B or a student visa or something else where they already have work authorization that we could transfer. But it's a slow and painful process, almost 12 months in, we're finally getting requests for evidence.
I mean, it's great that you're getting RFEs issued, request for evidence, but I mean, 12 months after filing.
It's too long. Companies get funded with the expectation that they're going to deploy the capital in 18 months. So for all intents and purposes, it's a totally ineffective program.
Yeah, or who's going to
go
like
out the startup visa that you mentioned, I got to help Zoe Lofgren's office draft that, and I was super excited when the House voted to approve it in the America Competes Act in January. Right now it's before a conference committee, and there's some Republican senators kind of holding it hostage, but they don't even know. I was talking to some lobbyists yesterday. They don't even know if the whole USICA Competes Act is even going to get through conference. So there's just a lot of movement, and I think that if a company actually wants to do immigration in the next 6 months, there shouldn't be any waiting around for bureaucrats or legislators. It's just a matter of using what exists now and finding a way to make it happen.
And what I will add to that is that on the glass half full part, that the administration has made policy updates to the O visa, which is a fantastic visa if you've been funded, and it's a great visa to use. So Sophie's right.
That was so exciting, Tahmina.
Yeah, so if people are actually ready to apply, the O visa is actually one of the best bets at the moment, because you can premium process that and get an approval within 2 weeks if you're lucky, without questions. And the MCs are still the pain point, depending on which country you're coming from. But, I want to stick to the guns of, like, the glass is half full, because we're not in the Trump era where everything was closed. And the realistic expectation we do have to give our clients is nothing is going to be easy, but it's possible.
So, Tahmina, let's draw on that thread just for a moment and kind of go from looking ahead to looking today. So if you were, and you do every day, give recommendations to companies, but what would be some of your top recommendations today for a company that's looking to bring personnel into the US?
Well, I think, if they have branches abroad, then the L1 is a no-brainer, and that can be premium processed and they can do here. But the O still works. It really is a case-by-case analysis. But often the question that comes up for people is, I'm E eligible. Can I do the E instead? And then you have to go through, are you an employer or an investor in the company? How much do you own? So each case is, a case-by-case analysis, and everybody will agree here. But it's possible. What I want to leave people with is there are options, just like Sophie said. And I think you've got to really explore them to make sure that that square peg fits in the round hole, no matter how you can make it work.
And to piggyback on Tahmina, what you said, I think for companies that really need US expansion, it's still possible. It might take more time and money to get qualified, but for the really amazing business opportunities that exist here, it might be worth the investment. So it's like a strategic business decision to make in conjunction with the information from your immigration lawyer to figure out what the timing and investment would be of becoming
I think that I think that's 100% it. At the end of the day, it's totally doable. You just got to be pragmatic, and you got to have realistic timeframes on when you're going to be achieving it. Like, what I always tell foreign nationals is, you don't have the luxury of just kind of setting up a company in your garage and turning it into Microsoft. Like, when you enter the United States market as a foreign company expanding or as an entrepreneur, you have to really cut with intention. You have to have a plan. And just like you have a strategic plan for growth of your business, unfortunately, today, you need to have a strategic plan on how you're going to tackle migration, whether that be you as the founder or key members of your team that are necessary to develop and grow the enterprise. Having that type of approach and building it in and treating it with much respect as you do your business growth is what leads to success. Where none of us can really help is like, hey, Jonathan, we got to form this company and I need to be there in a week. It just doesn't happen. Or these days, unfortunately, like, I want to get the E2 visa, but I need to be able to have my kids enrolled in school by August 15th. That might not be possible. And it's that understanding that is really critical. And I think would probably be the biggest takeaway from where we are today with immigration. Great trends. Things are moving in the right direction. There's a number of annoying roadblocks in place.
Jonathan and Tahmina, what do you think are the most realistic timelines for foreign nationals to have to think about when they could realistically come to the US if they're not here now and start a new business? Do you think
it depends on nationality? So
okay.
Like, realistically,
how would you break it down for people?
Well, certain nationalities have certain visa benefits that they can leverage. Like, there's nothing wrong coming in on as a visitor from Canada to start setting up your business as long as you're not operational. But somebody from India needs to actually get a visa appointment, and they're not doing B1 regular visa appointments again until December. And that was heralded as like a big announcement last week. So I think it's a little bit specific.
Yeah.
It's
I think for some countries and visas, maybe we can get people here in 6 to 9 months.
Oh, I think it can be fast.
If they qualify.
I think it can be faster. Like, Germany right now has like surprisingly short wait times. And Frankfurt is pumping out e-visas. Paris was like, you know what? We're opening it up again. Yeah.
It's exciting.
It is. Yeah, it's tough, but I think I like to overestimate my time frames. I don't know, Tahmina, what do you say?
I tell everybody, look at it at least 6 months, because at least that way they have a gauge. What people want is a gauge. And I think 6 months, is a good way for them to set up. It's a bit like the airlines when they say, oh, your flight is delayed by 10 minutes. Your flight is delayed by another half an hour. I think if you can just say that you have a gauge of 6 months and then it could be longer, because none of us have any control over that. What people do not understand is that immigration lawyers do not have a magic wand to actually, say sparkle and you're here. We'd love that, but we do not have it, because the roadblocks that we come across are multiple, whether it's the filing of the case, then, maybe there's an RFE that we shouldn't have gotten, then we have an approval, and then they have to go to the embassy. These layers of problems are things that sometimes we cannot anticipate and fix for them. So people need to understand
and like
that.
along those lines, your emergency is not the government's problem. They don't care. And like trying to get expedites for economic reasons, they don't care. It has to really be humanitarian. There's so many people waiting and so many people making expedite requests that they just fall on deaf ears right now. Like, unless you're working like in the medical field or dealing with something with supply chain, like national problems, you're not really getting expedites right now. So I think Tahmina's point of view on that is particularly acute and adept there.
So it's actually funny because in my head, the summary of this advice is very similar to what a finance teacher in business school would often espouse when he was talking about companies fundraising. And he said, always look for money before you need it. And what I'm hearing is you need to be planning your immigration strategy and going through the steps and building the relationships long before you're looking for the result, and kind of building, whether it's the key relationships with the professionals or with the embassies or whatever conduits it takes to make it happen. But it sounds like you got to think ahead and plan ahead are the kind of the big keys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the only real delta here is for a lot of the visa classifications, you have to have certain things in place before you can even start the planning. So it's a little,
right.
It's tricky. It's tricky.
So, well, let's go to a fun question. Okay. So you all are being made king and or now appropriate because of the Jubilee queen for the day. And you can wave your magic wand and make one change. I will start with Sophie. What's the one change and particularly speaking about sort of immigration for entrepreneurs, immigration for businesses, what's the one change you would make in our immigration process or policy?
What a question, Bill. If I could make one change, I would throw out our entire immigration system and replace it with a bidding market and just let free enterprise and the market supply and demand determine who gets to come into the United States. So if a company wants to pay $1 million to bring in a key executive and the government says we have space and that's what it's going to cost and it's mutually agreeable, they can just pay for it. I mean, I would love to explore if you guys think this is a good idea and how it would trickle down to other parts of immigration. But I know that there's tons of companies that would love to pay. It's just simply a business expense, and it also creates jobs for Americans and tax revenue. So there's so many good things about it. So I just always try to think about like, how could we simplify? So maybe that would do it. Maybe it's a horrible idea. I don't know. What do you guys think?
We could Bitcoin it. You just pay with your NFTs.
Well, with our crypto wallet, we just put in our identity tokens, and the government goes boop boop boop, approved. Just cut us immigration lawyers out of the whole process and make them easier for people.
Well, and they just send you your coin. That's it. And it's easy.
Here's your entry coin.
I actually, Sophie, I find that you say that. I agree with that like 100% on the EB-5 program. EB-5 is an immigrant investment program where you put
It might totally
money
mess up humanitarian immigration.
you put money into a business, and I think there's actually something to be said on some level for wealthy investors, rather than having them invest in companies, invest in the country, in exchange get status. I don't know if I would blow up the entire immigration system and make it a pay for play.
She's queen for a day. Now let's not. You'll be king in a moment.
She asked me my thought.
This is Sophie's day.
Fair enough.
Well, I think there'd be like all of these humanitarian philanthropists that would pay for, low skilled workers and refugees to come in, right? There's a way to distribute all of it. Because money is just a symbol of energy, right? So I don't know.
Or potential energy. So it's potential until it's used, right?
Exactly.
Nina, you're queen for the day now. What do you say?
I have to think about that so much, like which wand will actually work. Is the wand going to be broken? Just because it's my Jubilee doesn't mean the wand will work. If I had one choice, it would be immigration reform, but I don't see that happening. So therefore, my one wand, wish would be used on having premium processing for international entrepreneur parole, because I think that's our startup visa. And if we had premium processing for it, then I think a lot of people could actually use it. So that's where I'd use my one wish, I'd say.
Cool. Love it. Love it. Jonathan, how about you? You're king for the day.
Okay, I'm king for the day. A lot of the stuff that I would tackle would not necessarily deal with the entrepreneurship side of it or corporate expansion, although I really, really, really do think that stuff we were talking about with the startup visa and making it easier to capture the spirit of the American dream through enterprise is critical. I think we sorely are missing low-skilled visa classification for year-round workers. I think that is a fallacy, but I'm not going to go into the fact, I'll just hint on it, that we've intentionally created like a subclass of people here. And we talk about illegal immigration, we look at the effect and not the cause. This is of our own doing, and it's an easy fix that we're not willing to tackle as a country. Put that aside. I really, really do believe one of the things that makes America what it is this fact that there's this dream that people believe you can come here, and if you work hard, you will succeed. If you have an idea for a business and you put the effort in, it will grow. We need a visa, we need a mechanism that allows people to capture that spirit that really, I think, embodies what it means to be American. And setting up roadblocks or favoring certain countries and certain nationalities over others is not really what we're about as a nation. We want to provide equal opportunity and equal footing. And I would like fundamentally move towards making that a reality for people. It's not about how much funding you have. It should be about the idea that you have. And I wish we could turn our focus and attention to that. 1/2 of all the Fortune 100 companies in the United States were founded by immigrants or children of immigrants. 1/2. We need to continue to capture that ingenuity and not let it go to our competing or neighboring countries. And that's the fundamental change I would make if I were czar of the world.
Czar. All right. Well, that's although that there may be czars again. Anyway, we won't get political.
I always say czar because we had an immigration czar in the United States after September 11th. It didn't last for very long, but
there was a drug czar.
Position and you install me, I will gladly accept the role.
Yeah. Well, you get a good palace, so it's not bad. Lots of gold. Yeah. So, well, it's been fantastic, and so for our audience, obviously coming into the U.S. is complicated. We are so fortunate to have great resources for you to connect to. We'll make sure to put Sophie's and Tahmina's and Jonathan's contact info and all the information on their firms in the description. But I want to really thank you, all three of you, for being a part of this today and for sharing your wisdom. And hopefully we can calling you again in the next 6 to 12 months to give us the next update, because it's been such a great pleasure. But thank you for sharing all of your wisdom with the audience today.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Thanks, Tahmina. Thanks, John.
Good to see everybody.
Great to see you all.
And to our audience, like and subscribe. And again, in the description, you'll see all sorts of great stuff. So we'll see you all soon. And thank you again to our great panel.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
One way